welcome back to Happy Mom Life. Today I'm going to be doing a DIY Halloween costume. It is for my 8-year-old son. Can you guess what it is? Pokemon related. Like my hat, it's my son's. I borrowed it for the video. I thought it would be a cute little touch to this intro. We are going to be making Kyogre. That's who we're going to be making. He wanted to be a legendary Pokemon for Halloween. I immediately got online once he said what he wanted to be and was looking everywhere for some sort of legendary Pokemon costume that I could buy. Nothing was available that wasn't some outrageous price or wasn't the right one that we were looking for. I scoured the internet for a pattern that I could copycat and follow, but I could find nothing. So here I am today for you guys, filming this video, letting you see the process of how we go ahead and get this costume made. Again, I have no pattern to follow from. I'm working with my mom. She's going to be helping me. She has a little bit of experience making Halloween costumes in the past when I was a little girl and for my brother. So hopefully with her help, we will knock this one out of the park. I'm super excited to see how this turns out. I hope it's everything I expect it to be and my son expects it to be, but with my mom's help, I think we're going to knock this one out of the park. So let's get on with the video.
Hi, good afternoon folks. I'm Amber's mom Janelle and I am helping her today with the Kyogre costume for my grandson Justin. I am not an expert in creating costumes, but I do have some sewing experience, and so we are going to muddle our way through this. Right now we are working on creating the headpiece. So everything that you're going to see for the next few minutes of video is going to be this headpiece. So fingers crossed it works out.
So right here we're using the foam board and we're cutting out the shape of what we want the top of the headpiece to look like. We are drawing a circle around where the hat is going to be and cutting out the hole for that. Next, I'm going to use this spray adhesive glue and glue the hat onto the foam board. Next, we're going to cut out a strip of this green foam and glue it to both sides of the foam board. We're leaving the sides open right now, and we will get to those in just a few minutes. We're cutting some darts in the side of this so that the foam, the green foam, will lay properly and not bunch up on the sides. And we're just gluing those together using the spray adhesive. Now we are working on the sides, and we just cut rectangles and are cutting these to shape as we figure out exactly where they're going to be. You can see me cutting that now. And here we are just finalizing our touches on the top of the head structure.
So the next part that we're going to be doing is the jaw, and the jaw is going to attach here and be kind of hinged.
Okay, so what we're doing here is using the red felt and cutting out the shape for the lower jaw. And we're also going to be attaching it to the top of the head at this point as well. And what we're using to attach this with is, again, just the spray-on adhesive. For this project, the spray-on adhesive worked really well. We cut out the shape for the lower jaw and the hat, and that is where my son's head and chin will go.
And so I'm going to basically mimic the same shapes that I did with this, but because there's a tail that goes all the way down, I'm going to cut one long piece and make different shapes in between. So basically what we're using is a unisex size large t-shirt because we want it to be nice and loose. So this is going to be going around his body. So because we don't have him here, we don't know exactly how long it's going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a length of the blue fleece to 3 times the length of this, because this is essentially the length of here. Then the t-shirt starts at the back of the neck, and then we figure another length of the t-shirt at the bottom. We'll do all the final shaping and fitting after he's here. So I'm gonna cut just a long strip, and then what I'll do is I'll start cutting it out in this shape, and then in the t-shirt shape, and then just straight down. So it's gonna be a really weirdly shaped piece to start out with.
So what we're doing here is kind of copying the shapes that we did with the green foam at first and cutting the top of this long piece of blue fleece. And then we'll be cutting the sides and cutting those to shape. To get them to lay flat, we needed to sew some darts into the sides of the fabric. So what we have done is we pinned the side panel onto the main body of the costume, and what I'm gonna do now is sew a 1/2 inch seam along where it's been pinned. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I'm done sewing it, and here's what it looks like once the 2 pieces are set together. You can see where we put the dart, and that'll just help it so that it doesn't stick up in one spot. We end up with too much fabric gathered together.
So now I'm just basically cutting out along the t-shirt. We're not going to cut all the way into the neckline because I want it to be loose and kind of come down straight, but we do want a little bit of definition there. We're not cutting the armhole, we're not cutting the t-shirt arms, so basically I'm cutting what's going to be a tank top, and then we're going to sew in long arms later as part of the whole mitt process.
Now we're cutting out the front of the t-shirt shape out of the rest of the fabric we had. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken the main headpiece and then the other side of the t-shirt fabric and pinned those 2 together. And I'm going to sew up the sides about 3/4 of the way, leaving a little opening for where the sleeves will go. And then we're only sewing about 3 inches into the top because we're not quite sure how the neckline is going to be yet. So we want to leave ourselves some extra fabric and extra room just in case we need extra fabric. That way we don't have to add more fabric in that we've cut away. It's more unnecessary work for ourselves. That doesn't really need to happen. So what we have here is Justin in his costume. He's home from school, so we were able to try it on. The shirt is a little bit longer than a traditional t-shirt, but I'm going to leave it that way. And then in the back we have some, turn around please. In the back we have some fabric that we need to take off, and what we're going to do for the back is we're going to taper it down to a cone. So it'll kind of like that, attach like that. And then to make the rest of the tail, we'll be doing that in separate pieces. But from the back and from the sides, I think it's starting to look like a Kyogre. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm doing right now is working on the fingers that will go around the hands that come out on the mittens. Okay, so I trimmed all of the edges on this one, and then what I'm gonna do is turn it inside out. And they're a little small and tight, and it's a little tricky. And I'm not trying to make them look like perfect rectangles. So with the edges rounded a little bit like that, I think it looks a little bit more just Kyogre-like. So that's what these will look like. And again, I made 8 of these squares, and they're about, I guess they're more like rectangles. So they're about 3 inches long by 2 inches wide, and then flipped inside out. They lose a little bit of their width and height, but they end up looking perfect. So these will go in the mittens kind of spaced out, and there'll be 4 on each mitten. All right, I wanted to go ahead and show you guys how I'm going about making the sleeves for the Kyogre costume. I first started out with cutting kind of a, I don't know what shape you would call this.
Like a key shape?
Kind of like a key shape, good idea, Justin. This portion will be where the hands will go, so it'll go up the arm like this. I had him lay down on the foam and measure out the length of his arm. I went about 2 inches longer than his fingers for the size of the arm. Then next what I did was take that foam and put it on the blue fleece and cut out the shape. 2 panels, I have these pinned together. Okay, so I'm just cutting out so that I have 4 pieces of these shapes, putting them together, and then tucking in the little fingers that we made earlier. I'm pinning those in, and then I'm pinning all the way around, and I will go ahead and sew them together, leaving the top part open for the arms to go into. Now I have to figure out how to get this foam in here. I decided to go ahead and roll it and kind of shove it in and smooth it all out, and that worked out really, really well. I didn't end up needing to sew the foam in. It lays in there really nicely. And he's so excited. He loved once I put the arms on here. He thought it just started to make the costume look more like a costume. The next day we started working on the chest/chin piece. That was quite the process to try and figure out how to do this. So we're pinning it on to hold it into place, cutting out our shape. Then we had Justin come and we just sort of pinned it on as best as we could and sewed it onto the chest. Slow and steady wins the race here, people. Don't go too fast. Little bits at a time. That's what we found worked the best. And here we are pinning it back onto the lower jaw, just making sure we got all of our points correctly done. Next morning we're taking this green foam and cutting it into a shape. This will just help keep the chin nice and sturdy while we're working on that. And then we move down to the bottom and we're cutting the cone shape out for the tail. Next we finally get to glue the fabric onto the head, top and bottom. That was exciting. Next I'm going to start sewing what will be the puffy gums. I cut 2.5 inches of white fleece. I'm sewing those together and then I'll stuff them with polyfill. Here we move on and we're finally putting some details on. I made the eyes out of felt and I made these white ovals out of felt as well and just glued them on using the spray adhesive. Justin loved the way this looked once we put the teeth on. And for the teeth, we just cut shark looking teeth and put red bias tape around the top there. You can see he loves that he can open and close his mouth and chomp down. Look at him. He's so funny. And moving down to the bottom of the chest, I just cut out these shapes out of red and white felt. They're not glued on yet. That's what I'm going to be working on next. And I cut the hand holes out for him. That way he'll be able to use a trick-or-treat bag or use his hands. And on the arms, again, I just made these shapes out of red felt. Each one of these lines goes to one of the fingers, so just make sure you guys center those and cut your lines and get them positioned where you want them to be. Now you can see where I added the puffy gums. They just go around the outside edge and we glued the teeth onto those. And it just helps the teeth stand out nice and straight and keeps them upright a little bit better. I did the same thing along the bottom here. Oh, and next the tail. Let me tell you, that was a process in itself as well. So we're using a metal hanger to make our shapes, cutting those with wire cutters. We used a wooden dowel that we attached these to. Here's the shape we made out of the edge of the hanger. Then we taped it on using electrical tape. We didn't have duct tape, so we just worked with what we had. Now we are using the blue fleece. We are going to cut a 1.5 inch seam, I think is what it ended up being, to put the dowel in, and then making sure to sew kind of around where the edges of the hanger, where it bends, will sit. After we sewed that, we tested it to make sure it laid flat, and it looked great. Next, we're going to cut out the middle piece. This was 5 inches wide to allow for the cone. I sewed down the seams on both edges. Now we're using some white felt we had left laying around, just getting out our shape, and then we'll be sewing those together. And here's the final product. I think it turned out great. It's attached to the dowel, goes through the foam in the cone on both sides. And both of these panels just slide on really easily, go right up to the cone. And again, we sewed these patterns all around the seams, going up, across in the middle, cutting out that middle piece so that it looked like it had kind of like an angelfish tail. Next, we're going to sew the cone onto these, just hand stitching it. This is our last and final step that we have. And the costume will be complete. Yay! Alright guys, and here we have Justin in his costume. Doesn't he look so amazing? I love how he can chomp his mouth open and closed. How cool is that? The tail turned out perfect. I love that he's able to move around in it and see just fine. It's gonna keep him super warm on Halloween night. He absolutely loves it. I still am in awe how awesome this turned out, but let's hear from him what he thinks about it. What do you think, Justin?
Oh, I love it!
Thank you guys for joining us on our journey as we created this Kyogre Pokemon costume. It was very challenging but super fun. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye!